Hi there, welcome. I'm making this video to show you how we make flyers for events at the Rec Innovation Lab, specifically banners for Eventbrite, LinkedIn, and posts for Instagram. The first thing I want to mention is where you can find all the information for the events. That would be on Eventbrite, which I'm showing right now. Basically what you need to include in the flyers are the workshop title, obviously, the date and time, the name of the presenter, their profile photo, the Rec and Miramar combined logo, and then if the presenter has their own company or they work for a company that we're allowed to use their logos, you can include that as well. And you'll see in just a little bit that I also included their credentials. Rose Bolos, who we're using an example here, she's an attorney and angel investor. So you'll see that because this is related to the topic of the workshop, it makes sense to include it. I also will include both of her logos, and you can see that I checked her LinkedIn really quickly just to make sure that I had her credentials right. So you always want to make sure that you have the information correctly displayed on your flyers. I also want to mention the correct size for each flyer. Right now we're looking at Eventbrite, and that's 2x1. So in pixels, right now it's set as 2160 by 1080. Also, you can see right now that I'm playing around with some different backgrounds. You can stop the video and look at the settings, but blur is one that is very useful. Pretty much every flyer has some blur in the background that makes it easier for the text to pop out. Also, you just saw me playing around with the effects on the text. You want to have some shadow or some type of background so that your text is easy to read, and that's very important for accessibility reasons especially. When making flyers, attention to detail is pretty important because you don't want to have a mistake on it, especially when you send it to the presenters. Also, you can see that I'm taking my time to make sure that I like how everything looks. I like to take my time with the first flyer that I make, which, like I mentioned, this is Eventbrite again. The reason why I do Eventbrite first is because it is kind of a medium between the dimensions for the square Instagram post and the 4x1 LinkedIn banner. So if you take your time to make sure you really like how the first one looks, then you just kind of copy and paste and play around with the position of each element for the other flyer. So it's a lot less work in the second two flyers. And also when you make a YouTube thumbnail, so I guess the 3 flyers, in this video we're not going to show the YouTube thumbnail, but it's almost the same dimension as the Eventbrite banner. It's slightly narrower, so making that into a YouTube thumbnail, you can just use the resize function on Canva, and most times it would just look good enough. You make some tiny adjustments and then it's ready to go. Obviously for YouTube thumbnail, you don't need the time because it will be something that already happened in the past, so it doesn't make sense to put the time and date. However, everything else is going to be pretty much the same. Now you see that I'm copying all the elements into the LinkedIn banner, which is 4x1, like I said. So this is going to require a little design work. Obviously, sometimes it's easier than others. In this case, I had to switch it around a little bit, but it didn't take long at all to make the LinkedIn banner. You'll notice that for the LinkedIn banner, I got rid of the Rec Innovation Lab logo, and that's because of how LinkedIn events look like. There is a space that is a profile picture for the event, and the automatic setting is just to have the same profile picture as the page creating the event. Therefore, it's just the Rec logo there. So if there's no space or it's kind of taking you too much work to make it into the design, just get rid of it and that'll be fine. Now you can see that I'm moving on to the Instagram post, which is essentially the same process. I'm just copy pasting all the elements, and now I'm playing around with it to make sure it looks good and it makes sense. It does require some, I guess, an eye for design. I guess that's the term that people use. So just make sure that everything looks nice and neat and pay attention to details. I should also mention that you should take your time to ensure that the new flyer you're making doesn't look too much like the template that you used to create your design. As long as it's not obvious that you use the template and you put in some effort, you'll be okay. Also make sure that when you use a template, which is normally going to be a past event, that you make a copy before you start editing, and make enough changes so it's not obvious that you use the template, right? We never want to have 2 events in a row that look too much alike, because then everyone's going to know that you're lazy and you just use the template, right? So it's fine to use template, just make sure that you change it a lot, especially the colors, the background, all of that. It just makes it super easy to make a totally different design based off of template. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.